Good morning again. Welcome to today's course, the Marriage Midwives Challenge. And today I want us to quickly run through what the course outline would look like. Now, in the first module, we're going to be shattering the marriage myth. And trust me, you need to be able to realize the lies that have held you bound in a difficult marriage. You need to be able to say, what exactly are the mindsets that have held me bound, held me captive in a difficult marriage situation. And we will be seeing those myths for what they really are. No matter the brand, no matter the kind of presentation it gives itself, you realize that, oh, this is actually a myth. You'll be able to trace, oh, this myth is something that has been passed on from one generation to me, or from maybe my mom's view, or this has just been a mindset of the tribe I come from, or this has been a mindset of the people I have lived with. Basically, to see that these are mindsets that you need to start pulling down and to begin to replace them with reality living. And the second one, which is most beloved, he's going through into our journey, the journey of our past, realizing how many baggages we've got on and beginning to bring healing to that child. This is where we'll strip ourselves bare and we'll be able to realize the negative core beliefs we have worked with. We'll be able to realize the conditioning that has held our souls bound. And we will find healing for our souls even as we work this journey. This is where we will realize that, oh, I've always held a belief against marriage. Or I've always held a belief against even having a good marriage. This is where you realize that this has always been the issue. And you'll be able to move from these issues into the very best of your marriage. To be able to heal even from triggers. Because sometimes the wounds you think you're experiencing in your current marriage isn't just the wound that your spouse perpetrated. Maybe your father was never there. Maybe you had deeply found the pain of neglect, or finding out for a young girl that her father never provided for her financially. And to enter into a marriage where your husband deprives you of money simply because you don't make enough. Or as a young girl, you saw your father belittle your mom, and that continued to replay and made you so sensitive that anytime your husband wants to do anything that looks like belittling, you're triggered and you just begin to react, and just you find yourself hovering into your shell. All of those wounds, you will begin to identify them one after the other. Because it's only the wounds you acknowledge that you're able to heal. There is no band-aid for healing. Healing is a journey. I keep telling every one of my clients, healing is a journey. And just after that, we will be confronting generational traumas. Saying, no, this might have been the story in generations before, but I am rewriting the story for myself. And to come to that place of peace and reality that you can influence, that I am not my generational trauma. To begin to speak, not just your own generational trauma, but even that of your spouses, and to begin to find healing. And then we go to module 4.0, one of my very interesting one. How do I influence different marital seasons? Where we'll go to different kinds of spouse. When you have to deal with the irresponsible spouse, deal with the workaholic spouse, dealing with the depressed spouse, the controlling spouse, the verbally abusive, the physically abusive, the uncommunicative, the unfaithful, the alcoholic, the drug addictions, whatever your situation. There is an answer. There is an answer. And so I welcome you to work into this journey with me. Trust me, it promises to be the very best with the help of the Holy Spirit. Thank you. Welcome to Model 1, Myth 1. And in this myth, we will be breaking a very, very critical myth. The myth that says that my state, the way I feel, whether I feel sad, happy, is based on my environment. And a lot of us might think, oh, I don't do that. But you come home, you remember how annoying your spouse is. You allow the memories trigger, and then you just see yourself carrying a sad face. Or you see the toxicity that you have experienced, and you just begin to think, will I ever get out of this cycle? Will I ever be happy? And this myth just continues to replay itself in very subtle ways, where we think that the state of my mind is determined by my environment. If my environment was happier, maybe I'll be a happier person. If my spouse was more supportive, maybe I'll be able to have achieved much more than where I am. And these myths hold us so bound that a lot of women are not able to step into our best selves. We are not able to become all that we desire to become because we have allowed this myth to hold us captive for so long. We have allowed our environment to determine the state of my mind, especially if you come from a country like my Nigeria, where there's so much despair due to the leadership problems. You just begin to think there's nothing, there's this learned helplessness where you're like, there's nothing I can do to change this situation, and you just begin to live with it. These myths hold us captive, and it held us so bound, especially for people who have lived in dysfunctional homes, who have no other mirror of seeing life. I come to tell you that your environment does not determine the state of your mind. Definitely affects you. Definitely an unhappy environment makes unhappy feelings develop. But you must realize that you have the power to take control of your life. And to say, even though this is the situation, I am in control and I am responsible for my own attitude. I'm responsible for how I bring myself into this marriage. It might look difficult, especially when you're under constant badgering in a verbally abusive marriage. But you must be able to bring forth yourself. And part of being responsible is me saying, no, I will not take you talking to me like that. It's part of you, your inner self, realizing that I am not the words that are spoken about me. If you grew up in a dysfunctional home, where your parents have constantly spoken bad of you and constantly wore down your sense of self, you might get into marriage and begin to realize that, oh, will I ever make it in life? And then that whole cycle starts afresh. You must come out of that myth and tell yourself that I am not the product of what my parents call me. And begin to redefine yourself. Begin to realize that I am not that person that I'm being called. I'm a child of God. I'm a son of the Most High. You must begin to say the very positive. And you must begin to realize that your environment, yes, it might be tough, but you're coming into that marriage with your best self. And you're not allowing the immaturity of your spouse. You're not allowing the childishness to affect you or to drag you down. And you're saying that I am bringing my best self into this marriage. I am bringing my best self into this marriage. The state of my mind is not determined by my environment. And you need to speak it out. Speak it to yourself. That even though my spouse has hurt me, it doesn't define who I am. I refuse to be a bitter, angry woman because my environment doesn't determine who I am. I am who I say. I will not stop my capacity to love because my spouse chooses not to receive that love. I am not who my environment says I am. And you must begin to speak that word and begin to tell yourself that I am not that person. I'm not controlled by my environment. I'm controlled by the Holy Spirit who lives in me. You must begin to speak that word into your mind. That is so important Because reality living is saying that I am not controlled by my environment. And you might be in very difficult situation in like BDA, you don't have an idea how bad it is. But I'm here to tell you that even if you've had this negative programming, you can reprogram yourself. You can speak life to yourself where death has been spoken before. And you must begin to change your inner wiring to say that I am not controlled by my environment. Your inner wiring, you must reprogram yourself. And you speak it by the words, the conversations you have with your own self. Yes, they have spoken these things, but you want to live the rest of your life with what they said. Because there will be triggers. And many times you just want to hide. This myth begins to beat you down. But you must say that I'm not determined by what my spouse says. I'm not that person. We go into the next myth. Now we're going into the second myth. And I trust the Lord has been shattering. You've been breaking down those walls in your heart. You've been breaking down and shattering those walls. And I see those walls of myth coming down. This next myth talks about the fact that people cannot change. Can I shock you? Are you the same person that you were 20 years ago? Because if you're the same person, you won't be seeking this knowledge. You won't be seeking new knowledge. You won't be seeking new understanding. So hear me out. People can change. You're like, BDA, I have a spouse that doesn't even seek new knowledge, especially on things on marriage. He's not even interested. He believes that this is who he is. He cannot change. He believes that this is who I am. Nobody can teach me. It believes that he has reached adulthood. I cannot change. These are my ways. I'm stuck in my ways. And you certainly join him to believe that. The truth is that I might not be able to change a person, but are you aware of influence? Are you very aware that you can be in someone's presence and after a while of you deliberately modeling the life that you want, you will begin to positively influence that? Yes, it's possible to influence your spouse, the person closest to you, especially because of the covenant that marriage carries. As a child of God, you can influence that spouse, even if you might not see those changes immediately. You might not even see them, but you see that little by little, as you model, not nag, my sister, but model, you begin to see that you can actually influence your spouse. You can become that positive influence instead of being a victim where you are reacting to his attitude, to his manners. You begin to model that change that you want. Reality living. You might not be able to change him. You might not be able to nag him to change. But you can begin to influence him. Yes, I said it. And you're like, oh, how do I influence a spouse? Come with me on the journey. You can and you will influence your spouse. Influence is something that we see even amongst friends. When you roll with your friends who are high flyers, they begin to influence your behavior. You begin to see yourself flying high because you have rolled with those friends. You have walked with them. So yes, you can influence your friends. Yes, you can influence your spouse. There is possibility that though person cannot change, because even your spouse was influenced maybe by his own childhood. And you can intentionally find your own healing journey so that you can be that person of influence. Even though you don't feel like it, you can actually be a person of influence. You can influence a spouse, no matter how the situation is. If a spouse can't be influenced. Let's move on to the next myth. Myth number 3. This is one of my favorite myths. Very favorite myth, like I said. It is a favorite myth because I see it play around so often, so often, where women are like, in a troubled marriage, I either resign myself to living a life of misery or getting out of the marriage. Those are the only 2 options I have. And I ask myself, who gave us that option? What about the option of finding that my marriage can thrive in spite of the downturn that it has been? What of that option? That I can live my best life, even in the midst of the troubles in this marriage. I choose to live my best life. What of that option? Who gave us only 2 options? That is either I live a life of misery or I get out of the marriage. No, my darling. Even in that very difficult situation, you can live your very best life. Because your emotions, as deeply hurt as they are, you must be able to realize that they cannot control your actions. You must deliberately control your actions. You must deliberately control your actions. Because as you live in this model of, oh, I resign myself to a mess of misery, PDA, it's too sad, constantly depressed, constantly not taking opportunities, because I wish my marriage was better. Oh, can I just live out? But I'm unable to live right now. And then you're swinging within these pendulums. When your heart can say, okay, what best? How best can I use this marital situation for my own good? What's the lesson I'm learning? When your heart can say that, what exactly are the situations pointing me to? And how else can I seek help for my marital situation so that I can find healing and so that my marriage can thrive? You're not the sum total of your marriage. Yes, society has made us believe that. But that's not all there is to you. God is saying to you, rise up, girl. Is that all there is to you? You think that I created you only, that if your marriage doesn't work, that means that you're not my child? Who sold you this lie? Who sold you this lie, sister? Who sold you this lie? You're my daughter, regardless of how marriage turns out. You are beloved to me. Don't let anyone lie to you. You're so beloved to me. And God is beckoning that. There's so much destiny to be attained. So much. That when you continue to live your best life, I've seen it happen again and again and again. That as you keep on growing, you just find that your husband begins to adjust to the reality that he's going to lose out on a very big person, a very big opportunity in life if he doesn't begin to adjust and conform. So don't resign yourself to a life of misery where the devil wants you. Because trust me, all the devil is after is that you lose sight of the vision God has for you. You lose sight of the assignments God has for you. And that's not making God proud in any way. You mustn't resign yourself to misery or a life of depression because your marriage didn't work out. Or because right now your marriage is not working out. Or because your spouse is cheating. Or because he is not even financially responsible. You don't stay in that place of misery. You go to God. You find healing for your soul. Your trust should never be in man. It's in God. God is the one that can restore. And he can show you steps to take. He works us on different kinds of healing journey. Some people's healing journey will require them staying away. But again, he works us step by step through our healing journeys. And it's so important that we understand that we are on a journey of healing. And the Most High God seeks to heal his daughters so that they can live their best self. They can be their best self. So you don't have only 2 options. You don't need to live all your life resigning yourself to misery. No, that's not God's best for you. You don't need to say the only option I have is to leave or to. No, there is that option of, even in the midst of this, I'm making the best of my life. I'm working my purpose. I'm fulfilling my assignment. And that is so critical in this time. To say that, yes, this has probably happened. Maybe my husband has not even given his life to Christ. Maybe he's an unbeliever. But can I live my best life here? How can I bring myself fully, be present in my world? How can I give my best to my generation in spite of what is happening in my marriage? And then I go to myth number 4. Whoosh! Which is our final myth for the day. Myth number 4. And he addresses the feelings of hopelessness. It says some situation and hopeless, and mine is one of those. You're one of those that believe, Sister A, maybe God loves her more than me. The way I'm looking at it. She's got great marriage going on. She's got good children. I mean, she doesn't have the problems I have. And you just resigned yourself to hopelessness. That's not good. Hopelessness, despair is not synonymous with who the Father is in any way. You begin to think that you're a failure because your marriage is not working. Who sold us this lie? Who sold you this lie? That paralyzing belief that, I'm a failure. My marriage isn't working. Look at me. Sister in the Lord, I have prayed. I trusted God. Virgin. Had no boyfriend before now. And now I'm in a marriage. And then my husband is cheating on me. Who did I wrong? God, what was... And we just keep allowing the devil badger us. And he hurts the Father. Can you just step aside, sister, and realize that your marriage does not define you? It doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. Your marital imperfections, admitting that my marriage isn't working the way I expected, admitting that my spouse is a serial adulterer, admitting that my spouse has an addiction problem, admitting that my spouse has a financial irresponsibility problem, admitting that my spouse is emotionally and verbally abusive, admitting that my spouse doesn't understand the word I do like I do. He's not a covenant partner I desire him to be. It doesn't make you a failure, sister. It doesn't. And that's the honest truth. It doesn't. Many times he cripples you. Many times he wounds you. Many times he hits you hard in the very hardest places. The infidelity, the irresponsibility, it hits you. But my love, it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. You're who God says you are. And regardless of how hopeless the situation seems, God is the one that brings healing. Your own part is to ask for the healing. Your own part is to bring your best self forward. Your own part is not to allow the devil have you under. Your own part is to bring that deep healing work. But trust me, you are not a failure because of your marriage. Not at all. You're not a failure, sister. And if you have a Messiah complex, you need to step back and realize, I'm not the Messiah. Jesus died for my husband, just like he died for me. You're not the Messiah. And it's all right. You will live your very best self. Some of you might be like, does that mean that I'm living a life of deceit? No, you're bringing your best self forward. It doesn't mean you're deceiving no one. It just means that I will live my best life, regardless of the very many dramas happening in my marriage. And it doesn't define who I am. I know society expects you to cower in shame and guilt because your marriage didn't work. But can I shock you? God doesn't blame you for your marriage. So why are you blaming yourself and beating yourself up every day, sister? Why are you allowing the enemy to use you as a punching bag? God doesn't. So stop. Stop it right now. Stop beating yourself up. Allow God to heal you. Allow Him to work in you. But please do not define yourself with that feeling of despair or hopelessness. Your marriage is not all there is to you. Your marriage is not all there is to you. Even in hopeless situations, the Father still heals the sick. He still raises the dead. He still is way. So trust Him. Let Him heal your heart. Let Him heal your soul. Thank you so much. On this note, we have come to the end of Module 1. We go into Module 2. Healing from all our childhood wounds. I look forward to seeing you at Module 2. Have a good one. Bye.